Hello, everyone. Welcome into Checking TV. We're ready to talk to playoffs here a little bit. As always, I'm Trevin Catellis. We got Doug Glatke, Nolan Scotty Porterfield, and we have our special guest, Gabe, joining us here today. What's going on, guys? How's it going?
It's going pretty good, guys. It's playoff hockey time. Let's get into this. We're back into the time of the year where life has more meaning than it once did. So let's roll.
Absolutely. Well, our main topic, if you saw our Twitter and Facebook page, is to talk about the Penguins and Islanders first round matchup. But before we get into that and drag it out for our main topic here to really focus in on that one, we'll run through the other matchups here real quick, just so you guys get a little taste of who's playing who to start the playoffs if you didn't see already. So let's jump in real quick and take a look. Starting off with the West, of course, if most of you guys should know by now, the 1 seed will be playing the 4 in all of these games. So the first matchup we're going to look at will be the Vegas Golden Knights and the St. Louis Blues. So thoughts from you guys, on who you think would win those games and whatnot.
Vegas is going to steamroll them. Honest to God, outside of Pittsburgh and potentially Colorado, they're the team who's playing the best hockey going into this. And they're so deep. They have Fleury's on right now. He's been playing really good. And, I see no way the Blues take this even 6 games.
Okay.
I agree with you on that one. The way the Golden Knights have been playing, not just, into the playoffs, but the entire season, they should definitely be the favorites out of their division, and I could potentially see them making it to another Stanley Cup final. That team is so good offensively, defensively, and Dougie, you touched on it with the goaltending. Flower has been amazing for them between the pipes, and even if Flower does, find those playoff jitters like he sometimes does, I guess, they got a guy named Robin Leonard to fall back on too. So it's a good time to be a Golden Knights fan, and I'm not holding out much faith on the St. Louis Blues. They're going to need another 2019 miracle in order to take down the Vegas Golden Knights. But that's the beauty of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Anything can happen though, so we'll just have to wait and see. But right now, I'm going to go with the Golden Knights in 5 because they're too good.
Gabe, anything to add on that series?
I think Vegas is one of the top 3 contenders, at least in my eyes. I think they're playing unreal hockey right now. I don't think we can sleep on the Blues completely, though. I think they're a dangerous 4 seed. Although, saying that, I do think the Golden Knights will end up winning in 5 or 6. I don't think it's going 7, probably going 5, if I had to pick.
Now, obviously, we know that right now that's the way it stands. Of course, neither one of those 2 teams have clinched that full division, per se. So that 1 seed could flop, and we talked about this. I talked about it with Doug off screen as well. In certain times, if that were to swap, the Vegas Golden Knights would then play the Minnesota Wild, as long as they stay where they're at. If Colorado moves into that one spot, so if that were to move, and Vegas would somehow play Minnesota, would we be looking at something a little bit different?
I'd say potentially. For Minnesota, it all really depends on their goaltending situation and how that plays out. I know that Cam Talbot's been getting a major body of the starts lately, but there was a big stretch of games in the middle of the year there where Capo Kakkonen was lights out. And, guys, we cannot sleep on Kirill Kaprizov. I need playoff Kirill more than I need air. So if they could knock off Vegas, that would be fantastic.
And you also have the fact that right now, if it stands the way it stands, we just spoke on Minnesota, they'll be playing Colorado. So do we think that Colorado still has as much of potential and chance to beat a team like Minnesota, like Vegas would, or same case if they would face St. Louis? Do they have the same aspects and same talent that Vegas has to face both those teams?
I won't go as far as saying that they have the same talent necessarily. Obviously, they do have Nate McKinnon and Rantanen, so they do have a couple players. Definitely not a team to sleep on by any means, but I feel like the goaltending situation still isn't really set in stone right now for Colorado. You do have Grubauer who's sort of settling things in, and Dubnyk has been a decent acquisition for them. So I don't know how that situation's all going to play out for them right now. But I did have to choose in a 7-game series between the Avalanche and the Wild, I think the Avalanche are going to take the edge. I definitely think it's going the distance between those two teams, just because they do have a more experienced team. Obviously, and I think they are more talented than the Wild are. So I'd give the edge to the Avalanche, but definitely not going to be a quick series. I think that one's going to go the distance potentially.
All right, I like to listen to that too. All right, so that kind of closes out our West look at that. So let's move ahead to the Central. This one was up for grabs for a little bit. We talked about who was looking at that 4 seed to see if it was either going to be Nashville or Dallas, because Dallas was fighting for it, even though they started out the season horribly. They did not make it. Nashville secured that final spot. So this one's pretty much set in stone. Basically it is. So this is the way it's going to be. Let's start out with the first one, because the second one I know is going to be really fun to talk about. Carolina and Nashville, the 1 versus 4 in this one. If we look at it, we pretty much all know that Carolina has been a powerhouse this season. They're currently still top of the league altogether. So facing Nashville, does Nashville have that much of a chance? I mean, they are a strong team, but what do you guys think?
I mean, UC Saros is – go ahead, Scotty.
I was just going to say, like, on paper, I feel like, it doesn't look like Nashville has a chance, obviously, because, Roman Yossi's their leading scorer. And, I don't think it's not very often that your defenseman is your leading scorer, and, he does a substantial job at it. But, I mean, just watching them recently, I mean, their most recent win was 5-0 against Carolina. And I don't know if it had anything to do with the environment that they were playing, if they were on home ice or not. But, yeah, I definitely don't think that that you can rule them out. I still think Carolina is going to have the upper hand per se, just because I don't know if, Nashville's going to be able to pull it together, but we'll just have to wait and see right now.
Yeah, what I was going to say was Carolina is just so deep. Like, they have so much talent, lines 1 through 4. Obviously, they have 3 really good D pairs. The only thing that might give them fits is the Preds goaltending, because UC Saros has been really, really good. Getting them in. Basically, he's solely responsible for them making the playoffs, on top of Yossi being healthy. But, like, I don't know. I think their goaltending could stun them a little bit, maybe make this series go deeper than it probably should. What do you think, Gabe?
I agree. I mean, I don't think Nashville has a chance, but I mean, if their goaltending is spectacular, then they might have a chance to bring it to like 6. But I still think, if I had to pick just based on Carolina's depth, I think it's going 5. I think they could get 1. I don't think they could get 2 or 3.
I mean, look at the way. I mean, if Nashville can play the way they played the other night, beating Carolina 5-0, we have a different thing to talk about. But that doesn't happen every time. That's like it's like a hit or miss type thing for them. So, but the other one in that Central is the one we all want to talk about. Doug and I spoke about it. The rivalry that's finally come to fruition. Both teams from Florida that both were never really true like rivals. Now they're looking like they blatantly hate each other. And that's Florida and Tampa. That's going to be your first round matchup. Currently, Florida has that 2 seed with Tampa at the 3, but they're battling, they're fighting. Every game we see in that is so brutally aggressive, it's ridiculous. So let's get some thoughts on this one in the Panthers versus the Lightning.
I like this one. I really like this matchup. I think the Panthers are going to win in 7 games. I think that they're playing really good hockey right now. And, even though they're without Aaron Ekblad, they've been doing just fine. The thing that I'm most excited about, like the biggest storyline if they do knock off Tampa, is we're going to finally figure out how good Mackenzie Weegar actually is. And, he's been one of those guys, like he's been Ekblad's like partner for a while, just because of how defensively sound he's been. And I really think that he could turn himself into like one of those very like underrated star level defensemen in the league if they are able to have a nice little playoff run here. So.
Yeah, I mean that was, you guys know I went to bat for Tampa all last fall whenever they were, making their cup run. I don't know if I can do that this year. I mean, this Florida team is absolutely outstanding. Huberdeau and Barkov have been having outstanding years, obviously. Carter Verhaeghe has done a very good job himself. And like you touched on it earlier, Dougie, Mackenzie Weegar has really grown into his own and stepped up big in the absence of Aaron Ekblad. And of course, you got to mention Patrick Hornquist and how he's pretty much revitalized his career since he got down there to Florida. He's been a huge addition for them. And not to mention, they also have Duclair and Wenberg, who've also been playing pretty substantial hockey. As far as the goaltending is concerned, it seems like Drieger's going to be the guy they're going to go with. And yeah, I mean, he's done a very good job as well. And even if, that inexperience kind of gets to him, they do have Bobrovsky to fall back onto. What addition of Bobrovsky they're going to have, obviously, is going to be, a little bit shaky. But, that'll have to come down to it. Another guy, too, Spencer Knight. He's also been ever since he got called up, he's been pretty substantial for them, too. So we'll just have to see where the chips fall there in that situation. But will be very interesting. I definitely think that Florida is going to have the upper hand over Tampa in this series.
That's an interesting one. I kind of agree. I mean, I kind of have a thing for Florida, but that's biased. But I think that Florida will hopefully come out on top of that one because it's been a while since they've made it past the first round in the playoffs and whatnot. So hopefully they can move on and get things rolling.
I just want a Spencer Knight game so bad. Like, I want him to get in and go off like Demko did in the bubble.
That would be nice.
I just randomly had to pop that in there.
That would be nice. All right. The next one we'll talk about. We're gonna get to the East one last because obviously that's our main topic involves the Pens here. So let's move ahead to the next one. Doug, we'll touch on your team here first. Toronto, who's been the dominant one the entire time in the North, is taking on Montreal. No one close to Montreal below them to even have a chance to take that 4th seed away from them. I don't know why they didn't claim it early, just clinch it earlier. But here we are. The team that knocked out the Penguins last season in the first round is playing Toronto, and the way it looks right now, Toronto would basically hand them on a golden platter to them. So let's talk about this one.
I think this series is going to be a lot more interesting than people realize, for a couple reasons. My big thing, like my biggest fear in the back of my mind, is they're going to throw Freddie Anderson in net, and everything's just going to blow up in there. I don't know why I think that, but I mean, honestly, Montreal, they have a nice team. They're good. They have a lot of good young centers. Wild thing is, Cole Caulfield is here, and he's doing his thing. He's playing with Corey Perry and Eric Stahl. Like, that's probably the best thing for him. And yeah, that's what I think. I think that I still think that Toronto wins this one. They finally get out of the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 6 or 7 games.
Building off what you said there about Anderson, Dougie, I think it would be a tremendous in service to Jack Campbell if they go back to Freddie Anderson. I understand that he was the guy there for the longest time, but it's like we've said in earlier episodes, Jack Campbell has to be your guy. For how well he's played since he got put in that situation, you have to stick with him. He's earned it. You don't want to have a situation where, Freddie Anderson comes in cold and now, oh, wait, now we're down 2-0 or we're down 3-1. And now we have to try and scramble and get Jack Campbell back into the net again. That you need to avoid that at all possibilities. So I think the smart thing for them to do is just go with Jack Campbell, because let's face it, this is the most talented team in the North Division. They have everyone that they need to get it done. They have Marner, they have Matthews, they have Tavares, they have Nylander. So I feel like In all honesty, in my opinion, Toronto's real competition doesn't start until they get out of the North Division. So for these first 2 rounds, I expect them to have a relatively easy road. I'll say I'll put like little quotations around that because obviously, as we said before, anything can happen. But at least with this first round against Montreal, this should be an open and shut case for the Maple Leafs. I don't see them, crapping out and losing in any way, shape, or form. So this is definitely going to be a win for the Maple Leafs, in my opinion.
At least Toronto is not matched with Boston for like the 8th year in a row.
Yeah, that's the only thing that will hold them back at this point.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe that's where the chips fall. They end up getting stuck with facing Boston again, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
They lose in 7 games again because Wayne Simmons decides to kill like Sean Corrali for some reason. Like, just give me something random like that. Also, something random I want to touch on real quick. Rasmus Sandin. I'm looking at their depth charts on Cap Friendly right now, and I do not understand why he's not playing. I think he should definitely play over Ben Hutton. There was a small case during that small sample size where Sandin was able to come up and play for a couple games where there was a case for them to put him on the top power play unit because of how much better of playmaking ability he has over Morgan Riley at times. But I just don't understand like how you don't throw this guy on a third pairing with Travis Dermott and kind of like let him be your hidden gem on that defense.
Like, I'm just asking here, do you think that they're doing that because they want to focus more on defense for that last pairing? That's why they're going with Hutton as opposed to Sandin, or what do you think with that move?
I think it might be a cap finagling thing with them still being in the regular season. I think that they're not using him and probably like just paper moving him to the taxi squad because they have Freddie Anderson in as their active goalies, and because he's at $5 million cap hit, his annual daily cap hit's going to be a lot more than that of like Erasmus Sandin, who's on like an entry level contract. So I just think that it's like it might just be like a little cap gymnastics being done by Brandon Pridham and Kyle Dubas, but who knows?
Okay, and then the other one up there in the north would be the Edmonton Oilers versus the Winnipeg Jets. This one could get interesting. So let's touch on this one real quick on who we're taking, Edmonton or Winnipeg. I don't know. So.
All right. So I'll just start off. This is one of those weird playoff series, like where both teams have extremely talented players, but they're both not clear-cut cup contenders. So it's just like one of those ones that's just going to be fun to watch, and whoever wins, unless you're like a diehard Oilers or Jets fan. But I don't know. I think I give Edmonton the edge here. McDavid's been on another planet. Competition level of the North Division be damned. He's been absolutely insane. And like the big thing with Edmonton is they're so much deeper than they were before. Because I mean, the biggest thing for them, like the biggest win that they've had, I think in years since drafting McDavid was getting Jesse Puljujarvi to come over to the States and play for them because he's been fantastic on McDavid's wing this year. And, the amount of like good depth wingers they have, like signing Dom Cahoon and having Kailer Yamamoto come into his own, that's allowed Draisaitl and McDavid to have their own line, which is something that we haven't seen on a consistent basis since they've both started their careers. They've really just been like stacking that top line that really, that in my opinion, that kills their forward depth and their ability to score. Like, for instance, let's talk about this from like a Pittsburgh perspective. Could you imagine if the top line was Malkin, Crosby, and Gensel? The rest of the depth scoring would just be shot. Like it's no way to like ice a roster, in my opinion. So, I mean, I'm giving the edge to Edmonton. They've been really good this year. Tyson Barrie is putting up Norris numbers, but he's going to get overshadowed because of how good Adam Fox has been. But yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a really interesting series just because I really want to see it's like you touched about, Dougie, is that scoring depth going to step up for the Edmonton Oilers? Obviously, we've seen the season that Connor McDavid had. It's one of the most historically great ones that we've seen in recent time. Same goes for Leon Draisaitl. 81 points in 54 games is nothing to sleep on. Sometimes he seems to get lost and maybe gets lost behind the fact that McDavid's putting up points in the triple digits after 54 games. But either way, is that scoring depth, like you said, are they going to step up when they need to? I think Winnipeg is a pretty deep team too. You have to look at their guys: Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, Wheeler, even Andrew Kopp to a certain extent. They have guys who could step up and be big for them. Obviously, I think their goaltending situation is a little bit better than that of Edmonton's. No knock on Mike Smith. He's had a great year as well. But you can't forget about Hellebuck. Hellebuck's done his thing this year as well. So yeah, I think this is definitely one that could potentially go the distance as well. I could see this one going 7 games, and I really don't have a clear-cut one that I could give it to per se. I'll just go with Edmonton right now because McDavid. But yeah, this one's definitely going to be an entertaining series, and hopefully things go well, and we'll see if we can get that dream second-round matchup between McDavid and Matthews in round 2.
That would be interesting.
Think about that for a second. Imagine seeing McDavid and Matthews. Because honestly, I think that's the Stanley Cup final that people kind of want to see, and we get it earlier than we ever deserve to get it. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. All right. With that being said,
that's the perfect get. Okay, real quick. That's the perfect give back for the Sabres not being good and us not being able to get Matthews Eichel in the playoffs. Give me that.
Yeah. A consolation prize. Yep.
Yeah.
With that being said, let's move ahead to the division that we all want to talk about. The division's had some controversy lately. Everything's been going on because of the Washington Capitals, the dominant Boston Bruins, the Penguins, who are currently tied in points with Washington, but they have secured that 1 seed, so they won't move. Welcome to the number 1 seed, the Pittsburgh Penguins. But let's talk about the other one first, since we're gonna cover the Islanders. Since we got Gabe here to cover the Islanders, let's cover the other one real quick first and get that one out of the way, so we can talk Pens Isles. The Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins. We all know the issues with Tom Wilson. We discussed those last episode. We're not going to revisit those except for the fact that how many fines New York got for just speaking up, which I felt like that cartoon had smoke coming out of his ears when I saw that. But anyway, we've talked about Trent Frederick, that Doug had said being Tom Wilson's sort of kryptonite. So let's look at this one: the Capitals and the Bruins. Who we taking? What we looking at? They played each other last night. Let's take a look at this series. This is interesting.
The interesting thing for me that I saw last night was, even though the Caps won at the last second on that Michael Raffl goal, a lot of people were saying that Boston is going to destroy them, which I find rather interesting. But I don't know. This series could go the distance, or a team could get swept or win or lose it in 5. I think this is a very unpredictable matchup. Obviously, Boston's been playing a lot better since they got Taylor Hall. I mean, for obvious reasons. It's Taylor Hall. You got him at a discounted rate. Why not? But, the big thing that I'm looking forward to is Trent Frederick dying for our sins at the hands of Tom Wilson. I honest to God believe that he's just going to run around and just be suspension bait for him, because, I mean, let's be honest. That one game earlier in the year where Frederick was running around like a WWE wrestler and just had Ovi and Wilson just in a pretzel, that was like a must-see TV for me. And I have a feeling it's going to happen again. And, I'm just excited to watch this game just as like a hockey fan in general, not having to worry about okay, the Pens could play these teams, whatever. But I think this is just going to be a good series just for like the league in general because it's two powerhouse teams. It's two teams that like to play physical, and um, yeah, I think that it's just going to be a bloodbath for 6 or 7 games. Gabe, what do you think?
I think this might be one of the best series of the first round. I would pick Boston, but probably in 7. I think that Boston, with the addition of Taylor Hall and their second line, is scoring at a great rate right now. That I think they'll end up edging out the Capitals, but it's definitely going to be a great series. It depends if I know some of the Capitals were injured. It depends on how that affects them or if it does at all. But I probably would pick Boston. I think Boston is extremely deep this year.
I'm going to agree with Gabe on this one. I like Boston in this series. I do. I feel like, they seem to have, they seem to be a little bit deeper per se. Not to mention, Taylor Hall has improved immensely since he's gotten to Boston. Go figure, a star player finally starts to play well whenever he's actually on a good team. So, it's great to see that he's sort of revitalized his season, I guess. I won't say his career, but just his season in general. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a slugfest though, like you said, Dougie. This is gonna be a very physical series. Things could get chippy from time to time, but that's what we're here for, and we like to see that. This is what we're here for, and this is what we're gonna embrace. As far as Washington's concerned, obviously they are missing some guys right now. We'll see how much of an impact that has on them once they get back, because obviously they're going to need their big guys like Ovechkin, Oshie, and Backstrom to step up. But we'll see how effective Tom Wilson can be in this series as well. Another thing that we're not touching on either is the goaltending situation in Washington. They have some young netminders heading in there, and I think that's going to be their big X factor going into the playoffs this year. For Boston, it's going to be their secondary scoring. You're going to see how well that depth does play. But for Washington, it's going to be that goaltending. You have Vitek Vanecek and Ilya Samsonov, 2 goalies, to my knowledge, who I don't think have played any games in the playoffs. I could be wrong about Samsonov. I don't think he has. But, yeah, those guys are going to have to figure out, hey, which one are we going with and who's going to be the most effective for us. Off the top, I'd say it'd probably end up being Vanecek. But, yeah, that's going to be their biggest concern is can these young goaltenders step up for us when we need them to? Because I really doubt they want to fall back on Craig Anderson.
We all know the career that Craig Anderson's had. He's got the he's got the reputation of having Austin Matthews score 4 goals on him in his debut. He's not the greatest guy to go to when you're looking at a goaltender. Yeah, his career kind of went downhill after Chris Kunitz ended it back then as well. So when they moved on. So yeah, I agree. Boston.
Yeah, but to be fair, Kunitz kind of took the whole Ottawa franchise with him too.
It's very true.
Goal, so
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
I can agree with that. All right, so the
but before we move on, TK, you good? You're cutting out.
Oh yeah, sorry, we're good. We're all back. We were all frozen, but we're all there.
Okay.
And our audio is still good. So.
Okay. All right. Good deal. I got nervous. Oh, dude. All right. So
we'll cut and edit. That's what it's for.
All right.
Stop where we're at.
We don't have to start over.
Nope. Pick back up right now. We should be good. It never stopped recording as far as I'm concerned. So
you missed it, dude. I panicked.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, when I pulled this back up, it still said recording. Right. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, yeah. So as both of you guys, as everybody knows, that my despise for Washington and Boston is there 100%. So it's hard for me to pick either one of these teams. But if I gotta pick one, if I really, really had to die right now on the ground and pick one, I'd say Boston. Because Washington plays normally in the same division as the Pens, where Boston does not. So let's move ahead with a series that matters. The one we want to talk about. Or of course all of them matter, but the one we all want to touch on. Gabe is here to join us and talk about the Islanders a little bit, but the Pens are taking them on. So before we even talk about this series now, let's take a look back at the last time these two faced off in the playoff series. Look at what happened, and then let's move forward to how this year compares to that one. Gabe, since you're the Islanders fan, we'll have you start. Just give us an outlook around everything here.
Sure. I think even though the Islanders swept in 2019, I think it's a completely different team. Oh, it's not completely different, but there are definitely key pieces, such as Leonard not being in net anymore, and it's Varlamov instead, that are completely different. So I don't think the outcome will be even close to similar. But, I mean, it was an exciting series back then, and I anticipate it to be a highly exciting series moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Doug, Scotty?
Yeah, I mean, like the difference between the Penguins right now and what they were in 2019 is like literally night and day. You got to think of it this way: the Penguins replaced their three worst defensemen on their roster in Jack Johnson, Erica Branson, and Oli Mata from 2019, and replaced them with John Marino, Cody Ceci, and Mike Matheson, who somehow likes to take the puck up into the offensive zone like he's a forward. So, I mean, it's so different. And you got to think of it this way: the worst player in their forward group, like their 12th skater in 2019 was Garrett Wilson. Now you can make the argument that their 12th skater right now is Frederick Gaudreau, and he is really clicking on that line with Jeff Carter and Jared McCann right now. And, he seems to have found like random chemistry. We all know how it is. Us Pittsburgh people, we know the legend of the random white guy who just randomly appears, steps up big, and scores a big goal here and there. And since I brought up Jared McCann, he played one period of that Islander series and didn't play another in the 19 series because he got taken off by Kyle Clutterbuck. So that was another big forward that the Pens didn't have, and that really hurt them. But like, really, the big difference is, no Johnson, no Goodbranson, no Justin Schultz. I mean, the defense is so unbelievably better, and I think even though I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here, but you could say that the goaltending is better too, because Tristan Jarry right now is light years better than what Matt Murray was. And I'm not going to say Matt Murray at his peak. I'm saying like Matt Murray at like his norm, So that's what I think. Obviously, though, I'm not going to take the Islanders lightly. They have a couple really good pieces outside of like their main core, like Barzell and Nelson. You got to look out for Anthony Beauvillier. He's really good. Oliver Wahlstrom has been really good on their power play this year. I was looking at it last night. He has 21 points this year. 10 of them came on the power play. So that's something that the Penguins need to look out for because their penalty kill is atrocious this year. So
I think
would you agree with what I said there, Gabe?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned a few of the Islanders' pieces. I think they're extremely streaky. But if they're on a hot streak, then I mean the Islanders could take it 6. Like Beauvillier is very streaky. Nelson at times, if he can score like he can, then I think it makes the series a lot more interesting than it could be.
Scotty, you wanted to add some stuff to that as well?
Yeah, I think that, like you just said, Gabe, what's going to be the X factor for the Islanders is that offense. Are they going to step up when they need to? We know how good of a team they are defensively, obviously, under the system that Barry Trotz has had. They're going to be a good defensive team. But the question is, are the offensive weapons going to step up? Is Barzell going to be – is he going to perform as advertised? Is Bailey and Nelson and Eberle and Beauvillier going to step up like they need to? That's going to be the biggest concern for the Islanders heading into this series. For the Penguins, honestly, I don't want to be the, obviously, the hate Gino crowd has been pretty loud as of late, but he has to step up in this series because this is, like I said, this is a good defensive team that the Islanders have. And if you give them 3 centers to take care of instead of 2, that can make a night and day difference. Jeff Carter has been one of, if not the best acquisitions via trade that have been made this year. Jeff Carter has stepped up huge for the Penguins. So You already obviously dealing with Crosby's going to be a challenge in and of itself, and now Carter and that third line are going to be a problem as well. But the question is Evgeny Malkin going to be able to rise to the occasion? Is he going to be able to create fits for the Islanders to where now we have to match up that second line and we have to worry about a third line now that can be just as dangerous. That's what it's going to come down to. Is that center depth going to help rise to the occasion? Because obviously Gino hasn't done it in years past, at least in recent years past. My apologies. In recent years past, he hasn't really been there necessarily in terms of playoffs. They're going to need him in this series. And if he can do that, the Penguins can make quick work of the Islanders. If not, I don't know. It could obviously go the distance then. But like I said, if Malkin steps up, I don't think the Penguins are going to have any problem doing away with the Islanders here.
Yeah, I agree. The big thing with the Penguins second line is they haven't really been producing much outside of Kapanen scoring goals off the rush and off the turnovers. And that's something that they're going to have to figure out as a unit because of how defensively sound the Islanders are. You're not going to get those odd man rush opportunities. You're not going to get those opportunities where Kapanen can come just bolting down the wing and just rip a wrist shot like he has like Phil Kessel genes. They need to find a way to get that second line going because, if Malkin picks his game up, Kapanen will go with him, and then eventually Zucker will start to take off. And, that's the biggest storyline, I think, going into the playoffs is Jason Zucker. Obviously, with the amount of talent that the Penguins have throughout their lineup, he kind of seems just like a complimentary guy. But, if you can get him going and get him scoring the way he was in Minnesota, that's one hell of a complimentary guy. I mean, he kind of reminds me of just in terms of importance on the roster. It kind of reminds me of where Hornquist was at the end of his tenure with the Penguins, where it's okay, he's going to play the second or third line and he's just going to be there. But if you can get Jason Zucker back to form, man, that is huge. And honestly, I don't want to jinx it, but that could be a conference final run in their sleep if they get goaltending.
Yeah. We touched on, I know Scotty touched on it too, and Gabe. The defense from the Islanders is very stellar. I want to touch on one guy in particular, which I know most of us probably played fantasy hockey and whatnot too, but someone has been available in a lot of leagues most of the season, but was outstanding. Was Scott Mayfield. The young guy's been outstanding up there for defense for the Islanders, and I just want to take that second to compliment him because he's been outstanding. But what else do we want to touch on here for the Pens Islanders here?
Yeah, he's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sky.
Yeah, I was just gonna say him and Pulak both have done well this year. Yeah, you can't forget about Pelech and Dobson. Like I said, we know how deep they are defensively, and that's going to be the biggest challenge the Penguins have to face for them. Is this is a defensive team, and they are going to find a way. They can find ways to stop you, so you have to be aware of it, and you have to be cognizant of the fact that Barry Trotz is going to find those matchups if he needs to.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to bring up Noah Dobson and how good he was this year, but I just think that like you said, Scotty, this is a really deep defense, and they have three really good lines and a fourth line that is just incredibly physical. So they can be hard to play against at times, and I think that if the Penguins aren't careful or get complacent, this could become an interesting series.
All right, I can agree with that. Anyone else have anything else to add about with this matchup?
Gabe, you got anything?
I mean, the Islanders' defense has been great, but that's always been their identity, at least since Barry Trotz came on board. I think Mayfield's been playing great. I think Dobson's been solid offensively and defensively. But Pellick and Pulak can shut down some of the Penguins' main people on offense, then I think it gives the Islanders a much bigger chance than they currently have.
Yeah, I agree, because look at the bubble last year with Ben Sherratt and Shea Weber. I mean, they were able to shut Sid down, and I mean, I think that you can get similar vibes from both Pellick and Pulick. I mean, that was a big part of the reason that the Pens got swept in 19 too, was how good those two were together. All right, TK, what do you got?
That's all I have. Unless we have anything else to add to the show today. I mean, we look all the matchups look great. I mean, obviously the season's not done yet. Still a couple more games. I know we looked at it. It's basically a couple more random games, a couple more games here where a couple teams are playing it out. But then you have coming into the next week, you basically have Vancouver versus the world, because Vancouver's got to make up all those games from COVID time. So if you're a Vancouver fan, you got a lot more hockey to watch yet. But if you're everyone else, you're either out of games or you got one or two more. That's about it. So final game of the regular season on the 19th when Vancouver's playing Calgary. So up until then, just kind of wait it out and just look forward to play. I mean, the good thing is we talked about even and I heard it the other day. I was reading through some tweets and whatnot. The Penguins, even though Gino is back, he was injured. He just came back not too long ago. Obviously, this time span of where the Penguins are now in a little break up until they play again for the playoffs gives those players even more time to be completely healthier. Even though they are back and returned, it just gives them more rest time that they probably could have obviously used even before they came back. So a player like Gino can rest up a little bit more. Brandon Tanev can rest up even a little bit more, even though he's going to be good here coming in and stuff and whatnot. But it gives them more time to rest up just before the playoffs to kind of refuel for every player on that team.
I'll say this about this Pens team, because I haven't seen this kind of buzz around a Pens team since 2016. There really hasn't been like this much confidence about a Penguins team heading into the postseason like there is this year. And, I'm hoping it's not just smoke and mirrors and they actually do make a push for this thing, because, I was going back watching some old episodes that we did, and I remember saying how the Penguins weren't just one depth piece away from making a push for the playoffs. And now we have Jeff Carter on the team. So, thanks for proving me you're on, I guess. But no, seriously, this team is really, they're worth getting excited about. And I'm really hoping that they make a run for this thing, because why not? Nobody thought this team was going to even sniff the postseason. Everyone was predicting this team was going to be at the most where the Islanders are at, honestly. That's where everyone thought this team was going to end up. And now here they are, first division title in 7 or 8 years, however long it's been since Dan Bilesma. That just gives you your timetable right there. Yeah, this is going to be I really hope that the Penguins are able to pull something off here in this postseason, because, they have a lot of people to prove wrong, and I would love to see it. 100%.
Right now, it's kind of the if all else fails, turn to Jeff Carter mode for the Penguins.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm totally okay with that. If Jeff Carter is the reason that they make a deep playoff run, that's just nuts. But the big thing is they finally have a third line center. They haven't had a third line center since Nick Bonino. You guys all know my thoughts on Derek Brassard. I will not express them at this time because we finally got through an entire episode without me cursing or screaming. So we're not going to talk about Derek Brassard. But yeah, guys, honestly, I've not been this excited about a team in a long time. I have not. The truth is, this is the best I've felt about a team in Sid's entire career. This is the most, the best I've felt in terms of, okay, they can go and do the damn thing. I have unwavering confidence in them right now. I looked at the line rushes yesterday, saw whenever Matheson and Tanev came back, saw what the team looked like on paper, fully healthy, and oh my goodness, guys. I mean, like I said earlier, whenever your worst player on your roster is Freddie Gaudreau, you're doing pretty damn okay. Like, you're doing pretty okay. And also, I just want to add this in. I know that it's not Penguins or playoffs related, but the Rangers have just fired David Quinn. And it looks like Chris Drury fired the rest of their coaching staff too. So
Besides
that's
Benny
fun.
Allaire. Yeah.
Besides who?
Besides Benny Allaire, their goalie coach. All the other assistants.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense because the goalies have been fine. Like,
Exactly.
it's not the goalies' faults that, but yeah, it's gonna be a fun little summer for the Rangers. They should be a lot closer than they are, but getting that lottery pick, that might just be what they need to push them from being okay to being a legitimate contender, because I know what it was like for the Penguins in now obviously this guy didn't get put to use in 2007 whenever they had like that higher draft pick and drafted Angelo Esposito, but they were able to turn it into Marian Hossa a year later, and that took them from up and comer to a legitimate cup contender. So we'll see what happens there, but yeah, good for the Rangers, and most definitely good for Mika Zibanejad, because he's going to run wild now that David Quinn isn't there to hinder him.
Exactly.
All right, real quick before we sign off here, I think we have to talk about it because yesterday, obviously, or either yesterday or 2 days ago, Twitter had the huge firestorm over Jack Eichel's comments about the Sabres.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so I just thought about it now since you brought up the Rangers. Is there any chance Jack Eichel is still wearing a Buffalo jersey next year?
No way.
No.
No.
No way.
No shot.
I mean, that bridge has just burnt itself, honestly.
Get him out of Buffalo. The problem is what Buffalo, if it's going to be a trade, what Buffalo will actually want to give him up. And that's the issue.
Yeah, and the big thing is like, we've seen this in the past, like obviously historically with the Joe Thornton trade to San Jose and Ryan O'Reilly going to St. Louis. You can't trade these type of players without really getting an underwhelming package. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting. Where do you guys think he's going to?
I don't see how he's not a blue shirt by the end of the summer. I really don't. I feel like, all the pieces are in place for them to do this. If they can really pull it off and make it happen, I don't know what they would have to give up necessarily in order for this to work. But it seems like a lot of signs are pointing towards him going to the Rangers, and I'm really thinking that can be a potential landing spot for him. Like I said, I don't know what the price would be necessarily, but everyone seems to think that the Rangers are the number one landing spot for Jack Eichel at the moment.
Yeah, and you could also see that, and these are just potential teams. You're going to look at whatever team is not that great right now and is going to look to spend some money to put somebody else in there. And teams like that, like you said, would be the Rangers, even though they did do decent. The Detroit Red Wings could try to cash in on that. The Columbus Blue Jackets could try to make a move because Laine's not working out. Maybe, okay, move him with some other pieces and try to go for Eichel. That's also another option. But teams like that, so keep it on that track. Yeah, I agree.
All right, I'm alive. Los Angeles is another good option. I like New York and Los Angeles because they could pull this trade off without giving up a key piece. I think the Rangers could even pull it off without giving up Capo Caco. That's how good the Rangers prospect pool is, and especially with the Rangers, any trade for a center is going to involve Ryan Strome, and he's been fantastic these past few years, and he's built himself up quite a bit of value and street cred within the league. So that would be somebody good to pair with, like, Middlestat and Dylan Cousins to be like the new core of the Sabres, in my opinion. But honestly, guys, I think that the Rangers is a no doubter. They just got to find a way to make it work long term with the cap, because could you imagine just him and Laugh playing together? That would be just insane. Like top line, Laugh, Eichel, and Buchnevich. And then you have Panarin and Zibanejad playing together with like Kreider or Kravtsov. Be fantastic.
Yep, 100%. Definitely be. I think that would definitely. I think, like I said, like the Rangers, it seems like they're just missing that one piece to sort of push them over the edge, like what they didn't have this year. Obviously, the rough start didn't help, but I think they were just missing that one guy that can really make them into the team that they should be. And Jack Eichel would be that guy, 100%. I think he'd be that guy on any team, obviously, but especially in New York. So yeah, like you said, I think it seems like that's the obvious landing point for him. We'll see if any other teams can spice it up and make things interesting. I saw some people saying that Minnesota wouldn't also be a bad landing spot for Eichel as well. So we'll just have to let the chips fall where they may. But yeah, it seems like Eichel's going to be moving out of Buffalo. So thank goodness for him, man.
It doesn't leave Buffalo much.
Eichel and Eriksson Ek would be real quick. Eichel and Eriksson Ek would be one hell of a 1-2 punch for Minnesota. That would be the best center depth they've had probably ever.
So to add on us, just another thing I thought about now. Is there any chance John Tortorella gets hired by a team next season?
No.
Is any
no
chance going to take that chance?
He's going into exile like Babs.
I was thinking he'd go the Iron Mike route and go over to Russia and try and coach or something, or he'll find some.
That would be great. I'd pay to see that.
Honestly. It'd be hilarious.
All right. Anything else we have for the show, guys? Are we good to wrap up?
We're good.
All right. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you guys for joining us in for another episode here on Forechecking TV. A couple games you left to watch. If you're a hockey fan, keep up watching. Keep up watching them. We're almost ready for the playoffs to begin here in another week. We'll have another show next week, right when the playoffs are getting started here. So stay tuned for that on YouTube and everywhere you want to get your podcast. We have the audio available for you as well. But for now, as always, I'm Trevin, TK. We got Doug, Scotty, and Gabe. Thank you for joining us as an Islanders fan today to talk about some stuff. We're glad to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, have a good one, and we will see you next time right here on Forechecking TV.